Welcome back to Hobby Jogger Elite. My name is Connor, and yes, we are already thinking about next year's racing calendar. I did indeed just complete my most recent marathon. Usually when I have a race that I wouldn't necessarily call bad, but one that maybe didn't meet my expectations necessarily, take a little bit of time, a couple weeks, really like shut my brain off in terms of planning, in terms of thinking about how I'm going to train for upcoming races, think about what those upcoming races may even be to begin with. But whenever I have a better race, regardless of really how the quality the race is, it doesn't take me very long to start looking towards the future. And that is certainly the case right now at the time of recording. I'm still within a week of my last marathon result, which to date is my absolute best marathon. So maybe it's warranted, maybe it's appropriate. Maybe I get a bit of a pass here, starting to not necessarily jump the gun and thinking about what I want to do for 2024 when it comes to race calendars, but some of these races, they got price increases that sort of require you to think about registering for them a little bit earlier. Some of them, like Chicago, for instance, you literally need to put in a registration, in my case, days after running the actual marathon. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what my plans are in the near and far future in regards to racing in 2024. Now, last year, when I finished my third marathon in November of 2022, I pretty quickly decided that I'd be taking a break, at least a full year until my next marathon. But I definitely, again, I feel like I raced a really solid race. I don't feel like I left a lot on the table, but I want to put another marathon between now and when I race another marathon in the fall. So I first and foremost am going to prioritize getting a spring marathon for 2024 on the race calendar. One thing I did not get with my most recent marathon training block, my most recent marathon lead up, was an actual tune-up race at any distance. So at a minimum, I want to get a good one, maybe two 5Ks on the calendar between now and when I am in the thick of marathon training and eventually race that spring marathon. So before I get to that spring marathon, the hope is I can race a couple 5Ks, maybe fit like one 10K in there. I'll try possibly to get a half marathon in there, but usually, at least here in Pennsylvania, and I like to support local races and race local for the most part, you don't see a ton of events beyond like a 5K in the months of January, February, and even like the beginning portions of March. So I don't know if I'll be having a ton of opportunities to get into a half marathon in my next lead up. There is one race I had my eyes on for a half marathon in the beginning of February of 2024, which is the Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo half marathon in Bucks County. So if I do end up racing a half marathon in the early portion of 2024, that would be the one. Otherwise, I think I might hop into a couple 5Ks or a 5K and a 10K with the same race series that I was doing in Chester County, Pennsylvania last winter, which were some of my first race videos on this channel when I tried running 5Ks for the very first time. Maybe we'll hop into some of those just to like bust some rust, work on some speed development in preparation for the next marathon. But yeah, those are sort of still up in the air, a little bit more flexible because, with the shorter distances, you can kind of do whatever you want to. You don't have to build up quite as long. You don't need as much recovery on the back end. So definitely weighing my options there, but definitely anticipate racing some shorter distances in the lead up to my spring marathon, which brings me to my spring 2024 marathon. I am currently weighing the options and thinking about two. I've come down to two different options, and those two options are the Salisbury Marathon in Salisbury, Maryland, and the Jersey City Marathon, which is a bit of a bigger marathon in terms of, going through a city, just in terms of how many people they get registering on a regular basis. They're into like the thousands, which is far beyond what I've run before in terms of just the sheer number of runners in a race, which I find pretty intriguing. So I'm still, again, weighing the options between those two. The Salisbury Marathon is the first weekend of April of 2024, and the Jersey City Marathon is the second weekend of April. So my prime reason for that was to give myself a little bit of time here to just sort of run easy, recover from this most recent marathon, and sort of be able to attack that marathon training without a ton of trepidation or concern with like getting back into it too quickly. My original race that I was planning on doing for my spring marathon was the Yuengling Shamrock Marathon on St. Paddy's Day weekend in Virginia Beach, and that usually gets a pretty decent amount of people running it. But that is the second weekend of March, which means that I would have to start marathon training pretty quickly after this most recent marathon. And, before the holidays even start, I would be like back into building up. So I want to give myself a little bit of extra time. Looking at Salisbury and Jersey City potentially gives me like 2 to 3 extra weeks of buffer time between, when I would have to start training for the Shamrock Marathon in Virginia Beach and for those two options. So currently, those are my top two options. Regardless, they're within a week of each other. I'll probably start training sometime here in December for the actual marathon. Maybe I'll make a decision while I am literally training for it, because they are only a week apart. Probably do a 14 to 16 week build for that one instead of the 18-week build that I did for my most recent marathon here in November. The 18 weeks just kind of felt like a long time, and I think on the back end of a marathon training cycle, I don't quite need 18 full weeks, and it will give me time to maybe get in some speed work, do some 5K work before we get into the marathon training, which I've found beneficial. And it's fun to, change up the distance, change up the training approach a little bit here. So that is the spring plan. And then that will, again, by doing an April marathon here in the spring, give me again some time to recover, some time to maybe again tackle some shorter distances. I really liked racing 5Ks during the summer, this most recent summer. Maybe I'll get a 10K closer to the beginning of summer, just so, temperatures are a little bit better and more suitable for that. I'll probably just race locally, similar to what I did last year. Might attend some of the same races I did last year through June and July, because we're gonna have to get started marathon training much earlier than we did this year. This year, I was able to kind of push back my start of marathon training into July and even towards like the beginning of August, whereas this year I'll be racing Chicago in 2024. I am already registered. I already have my place rented out for that weekend. Like, we are fully in on Chicago already for October of 2024. It'll be the second weekend of October. So that's my big fall marathon for 2024, which again, at the time of recording this, is like 10, 11 months away. So we have plenty of time to sort of like prepare and plenty of time still to think about that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that first like big city major marathon experience. I've never raced a big city marathon. I've never raced a major marathon, so I'm really looking forward to both building up to Chicago and racing the actual race, because I've heard nothing but great things, and I always love watching people's experiences, listening to people and their experiences on racing Chicago. So that is sort of like the highlight of 2024. Hopefully all will go well leading up to that. Again, it is pretty far in the future for now, but overall, sort of a similar approach, I would think. Training-wise, I do want to keep things fresh, keep things interesting, but I'm not going to change things up too incredibly much, because I found the way I trained for this past marathon obviously be very successful. Early on in this most recent training block, I talked about how, like, in the back of my mind, the overall goal was just kind of to see if I could give myself a good chance at going sub 3 again for, the fourth attempt. And I obviously exceeded my own expectations in doing so by running a 2:53 comfortably. So we're going to see sort of where the fitness is at after sort of, again, taking some time to recover here, getting some work in before we start marathon training for the spring 2024 marathon, which again will either be Jersey City the second week of April or Salisbury, Maryland the first week of April. Again, get some 5K, 10K speed work in over the summer to prepare for what will be an early start to Chicago training. Those are the overall race plans for 2024. Beyond my own race plans, I'd love to hear what your race plans are. Are you racing a spring marathon, maybe a half marathon? Maybe you're doing some different stuff over the winter. Do you already know what you plan on doing in the fall of next year, almost a full year ahead from now? I'd love to hear what all of your race plans are down in the comments below. Maybe we'll be racing similar races. Maybe we'll be racing the same races. And yeah, that would be absolutely awesome. So let me know what you are racing, what you are planning on doing here in the coming year as this year, 2023, winds down. That's all I have to say right now about my plans going forward with racing in 2024. 2023 was definitely my favorite year of running that I have had at this point. I raced more than ever. I accomplished pretty much all of the goals that I set out to accomplish in the beginning of the year. And more important than anything, I had so much fun doing so and documenting it on this channel. So, this channel has grown more than I expected it to during this year. And I just want to thank all of you for the continued support, following along, being encouraging every step of the way. And here's to more of that for our races in 2024. So we'll catch up soon. Peace.